Welcome to Econ Unplugged. I'm Tanisha.
I'm Trisha.
I'm Sia. And I'm Hannah.
We're four friends who talk about what's going on in the economy and why it matters. No buzzwords, no lecture, just a straight up conversation. Today we're talking about the GST reform in India. We'll start off by explaining what GST exactly is and why it came about in the first place.
So GST started in 2017, and prior to this we had a multi-layered indirect tax structure which consisted of two branches. So the central government and then the states. Central had like excise duties and like regular service tax, and then each state had VAT and sales tax.
So the talk about GST began in the early 2000s, but it was only till 2014 when Modi, when he revived it, that's when they actually started to work on it.
So 2011, basically they were thinking about it, like launching the 115th amendment, and it was last because in India it's difficult to get like the full parliament to like 2/3 of the parliament to agree to the bill. So it was just sort of ignored and like negliged, and then Modi in 2014 he like started it again, and in 2017 it was actually launched.
So this solved the issue of double taxation where earlier the parts also used to get taxed and the product used to get taxed. So this promoted the one nation, one tax system progress.
GST is into two parts, right? So there's the central government and the state government.
Yes.
But now it's all one, right?
No, but the GST
It's
is divided.
It's still divided.
But it's one simple tax for all.
Alright.
So only the product gets taxed.
So basically, it really took a very long time because they were planning this in the 2000s and early 2000s, and then they actually launched it in 2017. So there were like multiple reasons as to why it took so long. So basically, states, since tax revenue is like plays a huge part in government income, it's tax revenue. So states like Tamil Nadu, especially, were scared of losing their tax revenue.
Yeah.
And between 2000s and till 2017, there were multiple governments, like multiple different people who held the house. Like there was Vajpayee, I think, in 2014, and then it was Modi. So they had their own opinions and their own focuses. So, which is why, and then again, you need 2/3 of votes. Majority
for it to pass.
Yeah, so it was difficult to get that.
So now talking about today in 2025, there are some big changes in the GST system in India, where the GST dropped and a lot of goods got cheaper, but a lot of them also got expensive.
Yeah.
So to give more detail on that.
So there's a sin tax being levied on all luxury goods and all demerit goods, like we say, like alcohol, luxury cars, bags. All these things have a 40% GST rate now. Opposing which there's
Previously it was
right,
28%.
previously it was 28%, and stuff like your dairy products, your pharma, like medicines and stuff, they all have reduced to 5%. Earlier they were 18%.
5%.
5 to 12.
Even cars, the tax on cars also reduced.
No. GST on cars has increased from 28 to 40%. But on small cars, it has reduced. On small cars, it has reduced. The GST has reduced, but on luxury cars, it has increased to 40%. So
Then now, like what she was talking about, ACs. Earlier they were considered a luxury good. So pehle it was I think 80%, and now ACs have been considered as a necessity. So now the tax has gone up to 5%.
5 to 12. I'm not sure between
Within that range, 5 to 12%.
from 28 to 18%. Okay. Tax on ACs has reduced from 28% to 18%. So what this has also done is it has classified a lot of items and brought in a lot of necessary reforms. Like as she said, ACs have become a necessity. Dairy goods like dairy and all dairy products have become a necessity for nutrition.
Yeah.
even for low-income households. So for them to afford it is a big reform that the government has brought in. Similarly, the sin tax, which is 40%, has also been applied on caffeine or energy drinks, which we see in younger generations has
There's an uprise.
in their use. So this might help curb their consumption and improve health for the younger generation.
There was going to be a huge tax margin on like Coca-Cola as well.
Coca-Cola.
So all your sugary drinks,
All
all your
the-
aerated, even like anything that includes sugar, even your like coffees.
Another important aspect where it decreased was health insurance, where it increased from 18% to 0%.
Yeah.
And it has been advertised a lot by many of the.
There were many ad campaigns saying like if there was a tax drop, then firms were advertising in a way that they were saying stuff like, oh, we won't take your tax benefits. So like they were giving offers and
Yeah.
discounts.
And
So
how
it kind of builds that customer loyalty, customer relationships.
For consumers, they were feeling like they were getting a lot more at a much lower rate.
also health insurance being a necessity and the government showing this reform is very beneficial for a lot of people. So now that we've talked about what has reduced and what has not, we need to understand how the GST cut affects certain products and how producers and consumers, how it affects them specifically. And this is largely based on price elasticity of demand.
Price elasticity of demand is basically the consumers' consumers' change in demand in response to the price. So there are two price elasticities. There's relatively elastic and relatively inelastic. So relatively elastic is when like even a small percentage change in price could like really change a consumer's response in demand. For example, like even like a 5 rupee change, there could be a huge quantity change in quantity demanded. And the opposite is inelastic. So for inelastic goods, it's usually the necessity because you're going to buy it regardless of the price. Elastic goods is more like, they're not your essential luxury goods. You don't need it.
Products that have more substitutes available. Like if I had to choose between Coke and Thumbs Up, and Coke has like a significant change in price, I would buy the Thumbs Up.
So this also refers to the tax burden concept where once tax increases or reduces, do producers pay for it or they put the burden on the consumer, and the increase in the actual price of the product or decrease depends on that.
Elasticity, Depends on the elasticity.
It depends on the elasticity.
So Tanisha, she's a Diet Coke addict. She loves Diet Coke. And I remember when they first announced that there are going to be reforms in GST and like the sugary drinks beverages prices are going to increase, she was in complete distress.
So I was very concerned that the prices of the product, Diet Coke, will increase significantly. But it being an elastic good for most people, the company has taken the burden of the tax. So the price has not changed at all on the actual product. So it is beneficial for me.
And also like there was a firm that I was interning with, and they were basically a hair care or hair focused brand. So you look at like even within that brand, there are products are taxed differently. Like if you see when they were selling shampoos and conditioners, these have become necessities. So the tax actually decreased from 18% to 5%. Whereas products like styling and hair care at advanced levels like advanced treatments, they were still maintained at 18% because they were not considered necessities.
So now we can talk about how this affects businesses in terms of cost of production, investment, and the how they contribute to the economic growth.
Well, as you said, like they can use it to their advantage. With like the advertisements, you get to build like a rapport with your customers.
The businesses benefit a lot due to this. Because of tax cuts, their input cost reduces and it eases cash flow, which promotes investment into many areas like expansion, product lines.
And investments are direct injection into the economy for aiding aggregate demand. So it does promote economic
India's GDP, and it promotes fiscal growth, which
It helps reduce the deficit or like the fiscal budget.
fiscal budget.
It helps reduce pressure on it.
Yeah.
Reduced input cost that you spoke about, it kind of eases your, it makes your products more internationally competitive because of your lower input costs, and it boosts industrial growth and performance.
It also allows firms to benefit from economies of scale because like then they would be able to operate on a much larger scale. So expanding your operations allows you to take advantage of like transport costs. You're able to fit more stock
So
into
your
trucks.
logistics and your complexities have reduced.
Your long run average cost decreases, so firms are able to take advantage.
Even like employment increases by a lot because like when firms are expanding, obviously they'll be employing more workers.
Yeah.
So in a country like India, I think it's really beneficial.
Yeah.
And especially like low skilled employment increases, so it kind of also reduces income inequality in the economy.
So all these are components of AD, like consumer spending, government,
Yeah, and
consumer
then
spending, investment, import, net, export, which is all benefiting the GDP of India in a global context.
even with like increasing employment or like a lower income inequality gap, it further boosts consumer
And there's a
expenditure.
reduced fiscal deficit as well.
Yeah.
This is all part of the expansionary fiscal policy.
Right.
You were also talking about small business. How they were affected.
Yes, so small businesses having an elastic good because of the increase in the prices, they will be largely affected because their input cost will increase and they will have to pay more burden for the tax, which might shift them into a survival perspective.
Yeah,
Especially startups.
Startups,
yeah.
Because if they don't perform, they have to be like.
But contrastingly, this will also boost startups because of lower prices in goods and more variety being introduced because of lower input costs.
But what about startups which have tax increased on their products?
Yeah, so that's where unfair competition plays in, right? So when big firms, I don't really know any brands, but for tax, suppose it has increased to up to 40%, right? So if a new startup opens up in like these tax industries like alcohol, tobacco, etc. If they open up, then they are bound to sort of fail because they don't have that reputation in the market. So consumers would not put up with their higher prices, so they would end up having to bear that themselves.
So that industry
Capital to
basically
survive.
suffers.
Yeah, but that's a good thing for the economy because again these are demerit.
For the population.
Yeah, it increases social welfare.
So another aspect of GST reduction is the government revenue and how it affects inflation or the economy overall in India. So these are fiscal policy trade-offs essentially, where these are the negatives of reducing GST, where it benefits consumers, but the government revenue has reduced, and it will affect. So when government revenue decreases, it affects other public industries like healthcare,
Subsidies
education, subsidies. So without increase in the growth of buying of products, their revenue is largely affected by almost rupees 576 billion.
So overall, government revenue has decreased.
Immediately government revenue has decreased, but
In the long run,
with
it is
the
good.
growth,
Because also there's an adverse effect of that because the sin tax has increased to 40%. they are, and it's an inelastic good, right? Because it's addictive. So they are able to sort of profit
Compensate.
out of, yeah, they are able to
Right.
compensate and profit out of that as well to fund like subsidizing infant industries, strategic industries.
You know, a lot of the syntax is like addictive goods, like alcohol. So you can.
So, but another aspect of syntax goods like addictive goods is introduction of black markets, where for lower income households, where it is more prominently used or consumed, black markets will become a huge issue to regulate by the government and the executive body.
The government would need to spend a lot of money.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, control them.
So like they would sell it at a lower price.
Lower price, yes.
But again, like an advantage of this GST is that there are fewer exemptions, right? So more taxpayers are coming under that umbrella where more people are paying their taxes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. With reduced indirect tax, more people will be encouraged to pay their income taxes or
Exactly.
reduce the black money flowing in India, essentially. In economics, we have a concept called the Laffer curve, which says that even though the tax rates have reduced, the base has broadened for economic growth, compliance, and growth. Meaning more products are being bought by a larger population because they can afford it. So this will positively affect the government revenue, which is possibly a negative effect for the GST cuts. So now that we've discussed about the benefits of this to producers, consumers, government, there are multiple potential extreme negatives of this action.
Let's talk about inflationary pressure. So, when GST was first introduced, many goods and services were shifted to the higher tax slab, right? And a very common effect of all these, like we spoke about startups. So, startups that are selling goods, luxury goods or demerit goods, if they are not able to perform, there's going to be like a wage spiral effect. Like people are going to demand above the inflation, and these guys are going to be like levied, so they're going to be out of jobs.
So this will cause a very high demand pull inflation where supply increases in the long term, but because of fiscal pressure, the AD has increased over by full employment.
And within like 5 years also the inflation rate should increase because it's expansionary fiscal policy.
Another negative impact is the inverted duty structures. So that is when, for example, medicines, the percentage of tax on the raw materials, the chemicals is 18%, while the actual medicine percentage tax is 5%.
Yeah, so this results in the consumer not getting any excess consumer surplus, so they don't get the benefit of the lower tax rate anymore because they're paying the same price. So this is, as she said, either because of a higher cost of production or because the firms would want or like choose to keep the extra profit for themselves instead of giving that benefit to their consumers.
So this only affects, in terms of medicines, this affects lower income households a lot because it is a necessity.
Yeah.
And if they don't get the benefit of the tax that the government is providing, it becomes a huge issue in that reform being implemented.
It could also just be that they're sort of manipulating it because if, I'm not sure if it is, but if it is not illegal for them to not pass on the tax benefit, then they could just term it as an increase in cost of production.
Even if when we're talking about low income households, so many of them are not even educated about the tax reform, so they don't even know when they're supposed to be receiving the benefit of the tax.
A recent negative development that this helps in is the tariffs imposed by the US government on India. So a lot of small businesses like clothing and retail industries were largely affected by the reduction in imports. But the tax cuts gave a lot of benefits in cost of production, promoting domestic consumption and making the goods globally competitive for other markets like Russia and the EU.
India was actually able to not, like, they didn't take the big hit from the taxes.
So this shielded us from the trade wars that are in such a
So basically, even if trade war makes imported products more expensive, Indian domestic businesses can still produce at lower cost of production because the GST helps with those burdens.
Yes, and clothing being clothing of saris or traditional Indian clothing
Yeah.
being relatively elastic, this helps them increase their cost of production. To conclude this discussion, we talked about what GST is and the recent GST drop in 2025, how it affected producers, consumers, and the government, and how it implemented economic growth, and also the negative aspects of it, like inflation. That's all from Econ Unplugged. We'll plug back in next time.
Bye.